A lot of people in the Thomas community are known to be big model train enthusiasts, and I'm no exception. I've been collecting model trains since 2011. My first model ever was a Hornby Thomas, and since then my collection of Thomas and Friends related models has grown. A lot. So today, I thought it would be fun to go through all the Thomas models I have. But before we get into my collection, I think I should give some background. Now, the last time I made a video focusing on my model collection was all the way back in 2022. And since then, I've 1. Got loads of new models, and 2. Moved house. So if you're wondering why the train room looks so different and bigger and better from when you last saw it, then that's probably why. I've actually been planning on making an updated Thomas model collection video for a few years now, but as you could probably understand, the move sort of got in the way of that.
Out of my f***ing way, Scarloey tooted loudly.
And I'd anticipated that this would just be a nice short showcase of my collection featuring all my engines and rolling stock. But then the Christmas after we moved, someone in my family gave me an absolute job lot of Hornby Thomas stuff that they'd won at an auction for a really good price, which basically tripled my collection in size. So we're going to be here for a bit longer than I'd initially thought. But I hope you will enjoy the video nonetheless. But very quickly before we properly start, I'll go over a few rules for this video. I'm only going to include models that are Thomas related. So models that just so happen to share a basis of and I may sometimes use to represent a Thomas character, I won't showcase here. But please do let me know if you'd like to see a collection video of my non-Thomas models. I also won't include models I've yet to turn into Thomas characters. However, I will include models that are a work in progress if necessary. And lastly, I am going to include most of my customs, but non-Thomas customs like the Binley Mega Chippy van for example won't be included here. So with all that out of the way, let's head over to the layout and get on with the video. Starting with my 00 scale standard gauge engines. What better model to start with than the first one I ever got? Here is my first Hornby Thomas. This came in the passenger and goods train set from 2009, which I got for Christmas in 2011 I believe. And you can probably tell this was my very first model because to say the least, it is absolutely buggered. It's a bit discoloured due to sun poisoning, it no longer runs, it no longer has couplings, several other bits have snapped off, and I remember as a kid dropping it onto a tile floor, so the body comes away from the chassis really damn easily. But still, it has a special place in my heart as my first model, and it came along with me to both the 2024 and 2025 Audrey extravaganzas at the Tallaghline Railway, as well as the Railway Series 80th anniversary weekend they did last year. Gotta have the main man with me, right? Now here's my second Hornby Thomas. When the Hornby Thomas range was reissued in 2015-2016, I decided to ask for a new Thomas for Christmas that year, and Santa delivered. This one thankfully does still run, despite its fair share of abuse. But I don't really run it that much, I think because I just prefer how the older style Hornby Thomas looks, which is why I take my original one to events like the Audrey extravaganza. But it kind of sucks not having one that worked. So to amend that, late last year, I bought this Thomas off one of the guys at my local model railway club. I bought this with the intention of painting it LBSC black, but then I found out that this Thomas dates all the way back to 1988 I think, and is actually quite rare. So I've decided to keep it as is. But still, nice to have an operational old style Thomas. Here is one of my Hornby Percys, and like Thomas, I have 3 of them. This one here is my childhood Percy, which came in the Percy and the Mail Train set from 2011. This one now barely runs, but unlike my childhood Thomas, the couplings are still intact. Just about. This Percy also came with me to the 2024 Audrey extravaganza and had a run on the test track there. Here's the second Hornby Percy I have, which is also dated 2011. This one I call my spare Percy. It's simply just a Hornby Percy that runs decently well. Not much more to say about it, honestly. And here's my third Percy. I got this at the Welsh Bull and Clander Railway last year, and it is currently off its chassis, as I'm going to repaint it. I'm currently thinking of turning it into the red Percy from the Australian comedy Fast Forward's Thomas skits, and hopefully at some point I'll have a crazy Bartholomew to go along with it. Here is one of my Hornby Jameses, and surprise surprise, I have 3 of him as well. This one here is my childhood James, that I got when the range was reissued along with the Thomas, and it's DCC fitted. Not with sound, but I've been thinking of upgrading it. And here's my second James. I believe I got this for my birthday a few years ago. It's also from the 2015 range, and I've decided to keep it in the box as this version of James is pretty rare now. And here's the third James. This is an older version dated 2006, and it was part of the aforementioned big Christmas auction. And on a similar vein to the Red Percy and eventually Crazy Bartholomew, I'm thinking of turning this into Jeremy the Pink Engine from Bobby Davro's Thomas skit, as this version of the Hornby James isn't as rare and I wouldn't feel as bad about repainting it. And it could also double up as James from Tickle Pink. But then it might just be nice to have an unmodified old style James. But we're not done with James just yet. Here's some rare Bachman Thomas representation in my collection. The Bachman Adventure Begins James. Now there's a funny story with this one. When I tried to run it first, the motor immediately gave up. That's because I tried running it with my DCC controller, which isn't really a good idea. And up to this point, I'd been running all my DC engines with the DCC controller because 12-year-old me didn't read the small print in the manual of the controller until it was too late. So we got a replacement James motor off Bachman spares and it's running fine now. So moral of the story, don't run your analog stuff on a DCC controller. It will probably fry the motors if you do this for too long, especially Bachman Thomas stuff as they're notorious for having quite weak motors. Next is my Hornby Gordon, and this time I only have one, I promise. I've seen a few people say that Gordon is one of Hornby's best Thomas models, but I personally don't see it. I think the blue's a bit too dark, the grey running board looks weird and the face is kind of off. The 2015 re-release Gordon looks a lot better in my opinion. But still, it's nice to have a Gordon and to send him bombing around the track with the express coaches. And I do apologise for how messy and bare the quote-unquote layout looks right now. But don't worry, as soon as the narrow gauge layout is done, I will start work on turning this into a proper layout. And I do have a few ideas in mind. Now here's Henry, which I think we can all agree is one of Hornby's best. A gorgeous looking model that runs really well. And something I think's worth mentioning is that I got this Henry second hand off Rails of Sheffield, and written in the packaging is Weymouth, 18th of October 2002. Interesting. And here is the Hornby Edward. Despite its reputation, I think it is a good model to have in the collection. Even if the Bachman Edward is loads better in pretty much every way, and I would like to get one day. And this is the 2016 DCC Ready Edward, so I have the option to fit it with sound if I ever want to. Next is Toby, and for a change, a Bachmann one. I got this Toby at the Wally show at the NEC when that was still a thing in 2022, and initially it didn't run at all. I wonder why. But after actually running him on a DC controller, Toby performs quite nicely, aside from having quite a loud motor. Now Bachmann Toby is certainly one of the better looking earlier Bachmann Thomas models. He's a good size and his face isn't too bad. Can't say the same for the Hornby Toby, of which I have two. The Hornby Toby is nice to have in the collection, but I don't think I'll end up keeping both of them as I don't really have the use for two of these disproportionate oversized fellas. Next up we have the Bachmann Duck. I got this at the Tallaghline Railway when I was there for the Heritage Weekend in September 2025. A really good model. It looks accurate to the show and runs really well, I think. But an anonymous Thomas fan, you said you weren't going to include non-Thomas models. Yes, I know, but it felt wrong not to include this. This is the new Accurascale pannier tank, that just so happens to be numbered 5741, which is Duck's Railway Series Great Western number. Now everyone loves the Accurascale panniers and I can certainly see why. They look epic and run really well. I would like to upgrade this model to look a bit more like Duck in the future. For example, adding a face and 3D printing some sandboxes when or if I get a 3D printer. And what's one Accurascale Duck without a second? Here is BR Black Duck, a renumbered 7714, which is the pannier preserved at the Severn Valley Railway, fitted with 5753 number plates from Fox Transfers. Now some of you might be thinking, why is the number 5753 Duck's Railway Series number is 5741? Well, my reasoning for this is going off the legend that is Sodor Island Models research. 5753 is a more historically accurate Duck number given its canon history, and I'd highly recommend checking out that video after you've finished watching this one. And no word of a lie, when I was filming this section of the video, I got an email off Accurascale saying that they're doing this exact version of pannier 5753 in their next batch. BR Black, right crest, and everything. They even acknowledge that this is Duck in the product description. That is nuts. I think I'll still hold on to this one though. This is my first time renumbering a model and I'm actually quite pleased with it. And also, both these models are DCC sound fitted and I love them. Three models of Duck. And to think I had to use my old Triang pannier tank for my All at Sea remake at the 2024 Audrey Extravaganza because I didn't have a duck then. Here we have the Hornby Emily. I saw this theory on Twitter a while ago about why the Hornby head with an Emily look the way they do. Both models were made in 2006, and at this point the concept of the Steam Team had been around for a few years, and Edward and Emily were the only Steam Team characters Hornby hadn't made yet, so I think Hit Entertainment made them couple these things together. Unfortunately, I can't remember who it was that came up with this theory, but it seems very plausible. Emily is also DCC ready, so I think I probably will fit her with sound at some point soon. That would certainly make her a slightly more likeable model. Here are my Hornby Bill and Ben. I got Bill at Wally in 2023, and I got Ben about a year later from Rail to Sheffield. Bill runs a lot better than Ben for some reason. and I've taken the liberty of customising them slightly by giving them their Railway Series numbers. And they also came along to the 2025 Audrey Extravaganza. Now, like Toby, Bill and Ben are really oversized, but I still think they look really cool and are good to have in the collection. Here we have the Hornby Iron Harry. As of yet, I don't have a Bert. Hornby Harry and Bert, in my opinion, are decent looking models, but there is one glaring issue with them. They have Splatter and Dodge's faces. This issue, I believe, came from some face reference photos for Splodge which were incorrectly labelled as being Harry and Bert's. But they are really good Splodge faces, and I'm thinking if I can get a second pair of the Hornby Harry and Bert, I'll definitely end up turning them into Splatter and Dodge. Now here's Dart, a character I genuinely forgot Hornby made until I got him. Like Edward and Emily, the Hornby Dart isn't totally accurate to his in-show counterpart, but he's certainly not as bad as those two. And I really like the colour scheme on this model as well. Now, I can't remember where I heard this, but apparently Hornby had plans to do Den as well, which never ended up happening. That would have been cool to see. Getting into the really good stuff now, here's my Hornby Stepney. This is the version from 2006, and he came with the big auction loss. A really lovely model to have, and it complements pretty much any rolling stock really nicely. Now here's a custom model that I'm really proud of. Brit. This was of course made as a commemoration to Brit Allcroft. And the idea was to have her bear a slight resemblance to Lady, but I think she still works really well as her own unique model. This was made using a standard Hornby 040, painted in Montana colours red violet, and lined in letters using gold transfers from Fox. I took this model to the Railway Series weekend and the Audrey Extravaganza at the Tallaghline Railway last year, and most recently, the Little Engines weekend. And so far everyone's loved it. Nice to know I've done a good thing making this model. Here's the Flying Scotsman. I got him for my 16th birthday, and he's definitely one of my favourites in the collection. Now for a long time, this was my rarest piece of Thomas merchandise. Boy was that soon to change. And this model came along with me to the 2025 Audrey Extravaganza as well, and had a run on the test track. Here's Bear. Probably the most random character Hornby ever made, but I'm glad they did make him because it's a really nice model and I'm very grateful to have it. Here is Spencer. I personally think the Hornby Spencer looks lovely. I've seen a lot of people prefer the Bachman Spencer, which I can totally understand, but I still think the Hornby one's cool in its own way. And I have two of them! The one you're seeing running now is the 2008 Spencer that came in this style of box, and the other is the limited edition 2012 release, which I've decided to keep in the box as I believe it's a lot rarer. Damn, I have quite the collection of Spencer stuff now, don't I? And here is the pride of the collection, Murdoch, the mighty 9F engine made by Hornby. He of course came in the Christmas auction lot, and I love him. Probably Hornby's best ever Thomas model. The tooling is a lot newer compared to some of the other Hornby Thomas models, and it still holds up today. Can't beat the old Hornby 9F tooling. He looks beautiful and runs like an absolute dream. And he's of course mega powerful. I've taken him to my local model railway club running days a couple times for the sake of giving him longer trains to pull, and he pulls 30 plus wagon long trains with ease. Gotta love the 10 driving wheels, he's such a satisfying model to watch. And you can say the same for Murdoch's TV prop as well. God, I love Murdoch! And on the topic of Hornby Murdoch, here's an interesting thing I've noticed. Murdoch was the last steam loco to be produced in the Hornby Thomas line, and Murdoch is a 9F, the same class as Evening Star, which is famous for being the last steam loco to be made by British Railways. Isn't that kinda cool? And that was my full collection of 00 scale Thomas & Friends engines. But we're not quite done yet. Now it's time to head over to a more complete layout and look at my narrow gauge models. First up is the main narrow gauge man, Scarloey. A lovely model from Bachmann, definitely one of their bests. Don't really have anything else to say about it that hasn't already been said. Now here are the body shells of my two Bachmann Rheneuses. Now you might be wondering why one, let alone two of these models are separate from their chassis. Well, this model is the reason, which I'll talk about in detail now. Not so long ago, I made my own version of Rheneus, or Rheneas if you're a Railway Series fan, using a 4D's Dalgach print, painted in Montana Colours Carmine, because I was trying to go for Rheneus's merch and magazine livery, because personally I really like it. Lined with black and gold lining from Fox Transfers, and fitted with custom-made nameplates from light railway stores, which took about 4 months to arrive and were an absolute pain in the rear end to apply. At first I had this running on the chassis of the Bachmann Rheneus I've had since 2022 I think. But then, when I initially filmed this section of the video, I had the genius idea to put the chassis back on said Rheneus because I wanted to get footage of him running. But the Bachmann Rheneus is really hard to remove from its chassis if you don't know what you're doing, and I ended up breaking the chassis when trying to remove it again. And at this point, the Talyllyn Railway's Little Engines weekend was fast approaching, and I really wanted to take this model along with me, so I hastily bought a new Bachmann Rheneus off rail to Sheffield, and it arrived just in time for the weekend. And now this one's off its chassis, it's staying off its chassis. But with all the lore aside, I'm very happy with how this Rheneus looks, especially the lining. And while I was at the Little Engines weekend, I was very kindly given a Rheneus face by a guy called Shadow GWR, so I'll probably have that painted and fitted to this model next time you see it. Next is the Bachmann Sir Handel, the most recent narrow gauge engine in the Bachmann Thomas range and probably the best. He looks beautiful and runs beautiful. Now apparently Bachman based this Sir Handel model more so on his base as Sir Hazen rather than his TV series model, and I've seen some people not be too happy about this, but I can't agree with them. Bachman Sir Handel still looks lovely, and in a way we've got an accurate model of the Tallaght Railway Sir Handel, so I can't complain. Next is the Bachman Peter Sam. Another lovely model from Bachman and a great one to have in the collection. And I honestly don't have much more to say about it. And here is my custom model of the Mid-Sodal Stuart, aka Peter Sam before he was Peter Sam. Like the Rheneas, this was made using a 4D's Edward Thomas print and painted in Montana colours Brilliance Green Deep. Admittedly, it's not at all accurate to any incarnation of Stuart or Peter Sam, but I still think it looks nice. Now some of you watching might be saying, an anonymous Thomas fan, why does this model have buffers? Buffers aren't a Mid-Sodal thing. Well, my answer to that is, if the Reverend Stuart can have buffers, why can't mine? Actually, the real reason for that is the 4D's Tallaght Edward Thomas kits were easier for me to get than the Corris Edward Thomas, so yeah, he has buffers. But this is a model I'm still really pleased with, and a great pairing with my custom Mid-Sodal boat train coaches. Now here is Rusty. I've always really liked the Bachman Rusty. The shade of orange is really nice, and I like how they're more of a similar size to Midlander rather than their TV counterpart. Here is Jerry the Mid-Sodal engine. I made this model a few years ago using the Pico Jeanette white metal kit, which is what the Reverend used for his model, and I was supposed to have it running on this chassis that came from Japan. However, I did something really stupid. I built and painted the kit before I bought the chassis. And spoiler alert, it didn't fit! So I decided to just get a new kit, and I've started modifying it so it will fit on this Japanese chassis, and that model will become Jerry Mark II. But I'm not letting Jerry Mark I go to waste. As you can see, I've started painting it in a darker shade of green, and I'll get a new chassis that will actually fit this kit to turn it into some sort of freelance engine maybe. And finally for this section we have the Mid-Sodal mine engine. Now there's a pretty interesting story on how I got the model I used for this. In November of 2024 I went to the NEC for the National Festival of Railway Modelling. The Worley show wasn't being held there anymore by this point, and there was a trade stand there which was selling a 009 Juff de Corville engine, which is what Audrey used for the mine engine and is hella rare these days. And the model appeared to have been modified by its previous owner. It was painted blue, and its cab had been taken off, which was just perfect for me to turn this into the mine engine. And of course, the mine engine it became. It was painted up in Railmatch BR bauxite with the number 9 added, and I got it done just in time for the 2025 Order Extravaganza where it could run on the test track. A model I'm very pleased with. And that was every model of a Thomas character, standard gauge and narrow gauge, that I own or have made. Now initially I had planned to make this video even bigger by showing off all my Thomas rolling stock too, but this video has gone on for more than long enough, and I'm sure all of you watching must be really bored of me flexing my collection by now. So what I've decided to do is split this collection video into 2 parts. This will be part 1, in which I covered all my engines. And in part 2, I'll talk about all my rolling stock in detail. And that should hopefully be out soon enough. But yeah, thanks so much for watching such a long video, and I hope you have a brilliant rest of your day. Be sure to tell me what cool models you have in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.